So what we'll do is we'll get a different color ink than we already used once we get our printing plate carved with some new details. And see, I used a different color pen so I could tell where my old lines were, my original lines, and then where my new lines are. You can also deepen any of your original lines that maybe seem like they're not quite deep enough. You can always go over those again too. Then you'll get one of your prints that you've already taken. Before you ink it, you just kind of want to look at it and make sure it's lined up in the right spot so that when I ink it, I can flip it over and it lines up with where I originally printed. So it looks like that matches this way because I can see those lines kind of connect in the middle. So I'm going to set that paper down off to the side facing the correct direction. And now I'm going to ink up my styrofoam. All right, so I've got this inked up with the yellow. I've got it facing the right direction. I'm just gonna do one more check, looks good. So now I just have to make sure that when I set this down, it's facing the right direction. I'm gonna try my very best to put it right where it was before, or you can purposely put it a little off. I'm gonna try to line mine up though. It's hard to do with this right underneath the camera, so I'm gonna slide it over a little bit so I can put my head right over the paper. Really look straight down on it. Look at where all the corners are and all the edges so I can try my best to get it in the right spot. There we go. All right, so I got it pretty good. It's a little crookedy, but it should be pretty good. So now I've got it the best I can. We don't want to slide it if it is in the wrong spot. Just go with it and see what happens. Now we're gonna flip that whole thing over and rub the back. So now we're transferring the new color on top of the previous color, but it has those new carving marks in it. So it will show some of the original paper color, and then it will also show some of the first ink color, and then it will have the final ink color on top. So we're gonna have what's called a reduction print. So we'll have 3 layers. And the reason it's called a reduction print is because we've carved more of the surface of the styrofoam in, so there's less of it there. So we've reduced the amount of area that's printing. And now the reveal. Ooh, very nice. One more fun thing to try out is to print on bubble wrap. So I'm just gonna squeeze out a little bit more ink. And I'm gonna roll this just like I would if I was getting it ready for my printing plate. But this time I'm going to roll it nice and gentle across the bubble wrap and print it onto a paper. So the tricky thing with the bubble wrap is it's gonna wanna come up with your brayer. So you can see how it kind of rolled up with mine. So you gotta go really slow and kind of hold one corner of it. And you don't wanna push hard. You don't want those bubbles to pop. You want them to stay inflated so that they can create a design on your paper. I know it's really tempting to pop them though, right? Okay, here we go. It looks like all the bubbles have a little ink on them. So now we can take our paper and we can take the bubble wrap and we can place it where we'd like it to be. I'm just gonna center it-ish here. Just give it a gentle little tap so it sticks. And then we're gonna flip it over and rub the back. Same way as we would with our styrofoam. It is hard because we don't want those bubbles to pop. We want somebody else to be able to use that after me. We're gonna peel it away so it leaves some polka dotties. Okay, so I've inked up my printing plate one more time. I'm going to flip it over. You should really let that dry, but I'm just gonna show it to you now. We'll see what happens. So I've got that printed. I'm going to carefully line it up where I want it to be. I'm gonna scoop my paper over so I can be right above where I have those bubble wrap dots. That's a tongue twister. Try to center it. Once it sets down, wherever it is, let it be there. Give it a little tap so it sticks. Flip it, rub it to transfer. we peel to reveal. Ooh, cool. If we covered the entire paper with those bubble wrap dots, it might look cool to have just the original print in the middle and then the dots kind of filling the space around. So you could do 2 prints with the dots, like top and bottom, and spread them out a little further too. But it just kind of gives it a neat layered look. One more technique, and you have to really pay attention to what you're doing for this one, because it's got to be very precise, is putting a dot of ink, one color, and then next to it, give a little space between, you're gonna put another color here. And it's difficult because we're so used to rolling this brayer forward and sideways. In this, we don't do that. So we have to really pay attention to what we're doing. Because when we're rolling this out, we want these to mix in the middle. We're only gonna be going forward and back. So we're gonna go nice and slow to get that ink spread out at the beginning. Just straight forward, straight back. And we can pick up the brayer and kind of move it so we don't get those gaps when we're doing this. And we want it to start out just 2 lines side by side, just like that. But what we want to have happen is in the middle here, we want it to start to mix, but only in the middle, okay? So ever so slightly going to roll it a little sideways and then pull it back, and then a little sideways and pull it back. So we're just maybe crossing over half an inch or an inch that way, kind of on a diagonal, pulling it straight back, and we're crossing over a half an inch or so on a diagonal and pulling it straight back. Okay. If you start going too far from side to side, it gets too mixed up and it's all gonna mix together. So just a little back and forth here. And picking up the brayer and kind of starting in a fresh spot will help that ink spread out nice and even. Beautiful. Okay, so let's take a look at our brayer. I think that looks pretty good. So let's try to roll this onto our styrofoam and see what happens. So we also have to be very careful with our styrofoam to go slow and keep it steady. Only straight up and down. So we're gonna pick it up from over here, only straight up and down, nice and slow, put it down over here. If we can't quite get the whole styrofoam piece covered, we can make very, very, very slight side-to-side motions, just like we did to get this mixed up. But for the most part, we're only going straight up and down, maybe shifting it over if we need to. Let's do one more pass here with the ink, just to make sure we've got it coated. That looks good to me. We're gonna set that down. All right, let's give it a print. Let's see what we got here, Mr. Birdie. All right, I'm gonna center this over my paper. We're gonna try to put it down right in the middle here, top and bottom, side to side, all even. All right, wherever it sets, just let it be. Give it a tap, flip it, rub it. Now we're ready to take a peek. Let's peel it off. Ooh, so beautiful. And voila, I couldn't help myself. I had to do one more. So I inked up my other printing plate with the leftover ink there. I'm gonna print it one more time. This one might not be as bright because it doesn't have as much ink as the first round. I didn't add any extra. Just gonna stick it down on this black and see what happens here. And that's all, folks.